My name is Simone Archer. I'm 34 years old. 3 weeks ago I sat in a cold car outside a house I built with my own money and listened to my sister change the locks on it. She didn't know I was there. She didn't know about the alert on my phone that buzzed at 4:47 that afternoon telling me exactly what she'd filed with the county. She didn't know about the detective in my kitchen or the attorney ready for this moment since October. She didn't know that the woman she'd spent 30 years calling the difficult one had spent the last 4 months building a room she couldn't find her way out of. She thought she was changing the locks on my house. What she was actually doing was locking herself inside a felony. The locksmith finished in 11 minutes. I know because I timed it. Then I got out of the car. Welcome back to Hidden Family Revenge, where we tell quiet stories about people who let someone underestimate them one final time on purpose. If you have ever been written out of your own family's story and watched them try to write themselves into yours, this one is for you. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Hit subscribe so the next one finds you. Let me take you back to the year I turned 8. My father James Archer spent 31 years as a high school chemistry teacher. Not rich, not influential. He drove a 10-year-old Buick and brought the same egg salad sandwich to school for 11 years because he liked it. His students came back 20 years later just to tell him something he'd said had stayed with them. My mother taught piano lessons 3 afternoons a week. She loved her children. She also could not stop comparing them. My sister Dana is 4 years older. She performed well in school, made friends without effort, knew how to enter a room and make the right impression. She was the version of a daughter my mother expected. I was the version she hadn't planned for. I thought differently than school expected. Not worse. Differently. Dana processed information in a straight line. I processed it in structures, in systems, in relationships between things. My mother called it difficult. My teachers called it not paying attention. My sister called it weird. My father called it being an architect of problems. He said it at the kitchen table when I was 11, sitting with my math test where I'd gotten right answers through methods nobody taught me. He showed me quietly that the architecture of how I'd solved the problems was more sophisticated than what the teacher wanted. I'd arrived at the right place by a route nobody had mapped. You see the whole building before you see the rooms, he told me. Most people see the rooms first. Both ways get you inside. Don't let anyone tell you your way is wrong. I kept that sentence the way you keep things that arrive before you know you need them. I graduated without distinction, as my mother put it. Dana's certificates lined the front room. I went to community college, studied accounting, and built a career through something every employer discovered within a year. I could look at the financial structure of a business and see exactly where the architecture was failing before it failed. At 27, I started taking side clients from a corner desk in my apartment, furnished with a lamp and an $11 whiteboard. When a client came with a failing business, I drew the whole organism on the whiteboard. Cash flow as a circulatory system. Debt as pressure points. Revenue as tributaries. Expenses as leaks. I drew until I could see the whole building. Then I worked backward to find the rooms. Every client said the same thing. That nobody had ever explained their own finances to them that way before. I didn't tell my family any of this. Not because I was hiding it. Because they never once asked. Stay with me. The land is coming and so is everything that follows. Hit subscribe so the next one finds you. My father retired at 62 after his heart gave him a warning. He spent the first year paying attention to what his daughters had actually become. Dana was a real estate partner earning more than either parent ever had. She called every Sunday, visited at holidays, was in the accounting of normal family life, an excellent daughter. I drove back to Ohio 4 times a year, helped refinish the deck, took my mother to appointments, called every few days just when I thought of something to say. One evening during the second winter of his retirement, he called while I was at my whiteboard. After nothing much, he said without preamble, I've been watching you since I retired. The way you work. The way you've built things. You need to stop acting like you're apologizing for building them. Then he told me about the land. 14 acres outside town, inherited from his own father, purchased in the 1970s when land was cheap. He'd had an appraisal done. Land values had shifted with new development moving outward from the city. The number made him sit in his truck in the parking lot for 20 minutes before he drove home. He wanted to build a house. Not for himself. For me. You are the only one in this family who has spent your life making sure other people's foundations hold, he said. I want to make sure yours does. The land is yours if you want to build on it. I told him I couldn't accept it. He said I could and I would. My mother was there. She said very little. I watched her face do several things in a row. Dana found out 4 weeks later and called with the voice she uses when she has already decided an outcome. Dad can't just give you land. That affects the whole family. I didn't ask what kind of consequences she meant. I already had a feeling about their shape. We broke ground in March. Framing done by summer. Roof on by fall. 8 months finishing the interior the way you finish something that is yours in a way nothing has ever quite been yours before. I moved in on a Saturday in November. 3 bedrooms, a study with a north-facing window, a kitchen island where I put my whiteboard because it was still the first tool I reached for when a problem needed to become visible. I stood on the porch in the cold. I had built the place with my name on the deed on land my father gave me because he was the one person who understood what I was for. The call started 3 weeks later. Not from Dana. From my mother. With a new warmth in her voice I recognized the way you recognize weather. She would love to see the house, she said. She asked quite naturally whether the deed was in my name only or whether my father's name was on it anywhere. I told her the deed was mine. Dana texted that same evening. First text in 6 weeks. How many bedrooms? Was I planning to rent any? That with Greg's company expanding, having a place in the county might be useful. That family should help each other. I read that last sentence 3 times. The word family used twice. Both times to mean something that included her and didn't require her to ask. I called my father. He said quietly, Simone, your sister spent her whole career in commercial real estate. She knows exactly what that property is worth and what it would take to get her name attached to it. I asked what he thought I should do. He said, you're the one who sees the whole building before you see the rooms. What do you see? I saw a structure I recognized. Someone positioning to absorb an asset that wasn't theirs. I had seen it in clients and vendors and partners who waited until something was valuable enough to be worth maneuvering for. I had never seen it from inside my own family before, but the shape was identical. I called my real estate attorney Ruth Calloway the next morning. She listened without interrupting. Then she told me about deed fraud. And what she said is something every homeowner in America needs to hear. Stay with me. Hit subscribe so the next one finds you. Ruth explained deed fraud clearly and without drama because clarity is more useful than comfort. Deed fraud is one of the fastest growing property crimes in the United States. Someone forges your signature on a document called a quitclaim deed. A simple form. They file it with the county recorder. The county recorder does not verify signatures. They accept what is handed to them, stamp it, file it, and on paper your property now belongs to whoever's name is on the form. You can lose your home on a single sheet of paper without ever knowing until someone shows up to change the locks. The terrifying part, Ruth said, is who does it. Studies consistently show that in the overwhelming majority of cases it is not a stranger. It is someone who knows the property, knows the owner, and has convinced themselves they have a claim that makes what they are doing feel like a correction rather than a crime. Family, I said. Almost always, she said. Then she told me about the county recorder's fraud alert. A completely free service almost nobody knows exists. You register your name and your property address, and from that moment forward, the instant any document is filed against your property, you receive a notification. You become the first to know instead of the last. I enrolled that same afternoon. Confirmation arrived 6 minutes later. I printed it. I put it in a folder in the drawer where I keep things important enough to need finding quickly. Then I called Ruth back. If someone filed a fraudulent deed and came to take possession and was caught in the act, what would that constitute legally? She said felony forgery. Filing a fraudulent instrument with the county. Criminal trespass with intent. A combination prosecutors take seriously. The kind that does not go away with an apology. I opened a folder on my laptop, named it with a date and nothing else, and started keeping records. Thoroughly. Chronologically. Without gaps. The text that told me we were close came from Greg, Dan, A's partner. He had never texted me directly before. He asked whether the county recorder had notary services on site or whether you had to bring your own. He was not asking about notary services. He was asking whether you could walk in with a forged document and have it notarized and filed in a single visit, during which someone might need to appear as someone they were not. I photographed the text with a second phone, noted the date, added it to the folder, That evening I called Detective Ray Foster, a property crimes investigator with the patient, unsurprised manner of someone who had spent 20 years watching families do things to each other that strangers would never attempt. He said the most common mistake a victim makes is tipping their hand before the crime is complete. If I confronted them now, they would pull back and I would have suspicion and nothing else. If I waited and they went through with it, I would have a recorded felony with full documentation that I said I would wait. He said he would be available. Then I sat at my kitchen island and drew the whole structure out on my whiteboard. Not from memory. From evidence. Every text dated. Every call logged. Every question about notaries and county recorders arranged in order. Forming not a pattern but a plan. Someone else's plan drawn out completely in my own handwriting that I called Ruth. Told her we were close. She said she would be ready. I said I would be ready too. Stay with me. The alert is coming. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens after it fires. The alert arrived at 4:47 on a Thursday afternoon in early December. Property fraud alert. A new document has been recorded against your monitored property. That a quitclaim deed had been filed that afternoon. Grantor Simone Archer. Grantee Dana Archer Morrison. The property my father gave me, that I had built on for 8 months, had according to the county's records just been signed over to my sister. I had signed nothing. That I sat with that for 30 seconds. Then I called Detective Foster. Then Ruth. Then the reporter at the county newspaper running a series on property fraud. That I told her it had come together. Then I parked 3 streets over in the dark and walked back through neighbors' yards in the cold. I came in through the back. I sat in the corner of the front room with my coat on, my folder on my knees, and 2 pieces of paper in my hands. The recorded deed with my name on it. The fraud alert that had made me the first to know. Detective Foster arrived at 6:15 with 2 officers. The reporter was already in the study with her camera. The house was dark and cold, and exactly what an empty house looks like when no one believes it is being watched. The headlights came at 8:40. Doors opened. Dana and Greg. A third voice I didn't recognize, flat and businesslike, which turned out to be a locksmith Greg had hired under a name that was not his own. I heard Dana's footsteps on my porch. The specific, confident stride of a woman who has decided she is arriving somewhere she belongs. I heard the locksmith's tools hit the floor with a soft metallic click. Then Dana said very quietly to Greg the thing that closed whatever remained open in me toward her. She said, "Dad should have thought about this before he gave her something she doesn't know what to do with." She was wrong about that. I knew exactly what I had done with it. The locksmith finished in 11 minutes. The deadbolt slid back. My front door swung open and my sister walked into my house for the first time. She, Dana and Greg, were charged with felony forgery of a deed, filing a fraudulent instrument with the county recorder. Dana and Greg were charged with felony forgery of a deed, filing a fraudulent instrument with the county recorder, and criminal trespass. The locksmith cooperated fully and was not charged. He was a man who had done a job and had not been told what kind of job it was. Ruth filed a notice of fraudulent deed the morning after the arrest. A judge voided the forged quitclaim within 10 days. The property is mine. It has always been mine. The reporter's article ran 2 weeks after the arrest. The response among the relatives who form the outer ring of my family's world was the specific silence that falls when something shameful has happened publicly and nobody knows what to say, because saying anything requires acknowledging what they all watched take place over years. My mother called twice after the arrest. The second call was longer. She cried the real kind. She said she had spent 30 years calling me difficult when what I was different. That she had rewarded the wrong daughter for the wrong reasons and did not know how to undo it but wanted to try. I did not tell her it was fine. It was not fine. But I told her I was willing to start. My father came the Saturday after the article ran. He sat at my kitchen island and looked at the whiteboard behind me for a long time without saying anything. Then he said, "You see the whole building before you see the rooms." The same sentence from the kitchen table when I was 11. "I've been seeing this one for 4 months. I said. He nodded. "I know. That's the only reason I didn't call Dana when you first told me what you suspected. Because I knew you'd already drawn the whole thing out. He had known. And he had trusted me to finish it. That was the thing that mattered most. Not the deed or the arrest or the article. A chemistry teacher who gave me 14 acres of land because he understood what I was for and trusted me to know what to do with it. Dana is engaged with the legal process. I will not tell you how it ends, because it has not ended. I will tell you the case is not going away and Ruth is the kind of attorney who closes things properly. Greg and Dana are not together anymore. My clients have never known any of this happened. I see them at the island in my kitchen with the whiteboard behind me, drawing the whole building until they can see it clearly. My practice has grown in the specific way practices grow when the word starts to spread through the right rooms. Not loudly. Structurally. My father came for Christmas. Just him this year. We ate at a real table in the house on his land and talked about his former students and his book, and the deck boards at his own house that need replacing in spring. After dinner we sat on the front porch in the cold and watched the dark fields where the land runs out past the tree line. He said, "Are you happy here?" I thought about it properly before I answered. "Yes," I said. "I think this is the first place I've ever lived that actually fits." He nodded. I knew it would. The house behind us was lit and warm and mine in every way that a house can be yours. The deed and the foundation and the 8 months of work and the oak door from the salvage yard and the north-facing window I'd planned for the whiteboard. I had built the place no one could take from me. When they tried I was already inside it, waiting in the dark, with 2 pieces of paper and enough documentation to show exactly what they'd built without knowing I was watching. That if I leave you with one thing, let it be this. The people who decided what you were before you had the chance to show them will sometimes circle back when what you've built is worth something to them. They will use the language of family and fairness and what's owed. They will assume the version of you they dismissed is the same one who will open the door. Enroll in the alert. Document everything. Build the architecture completely and let them walk into the room they've built for themselves. Your patience is not weakness. It is the whole building, drawn out before anyone else can see the rooms. That's my story. 14 acres and a whiteboard in a folder I kept for 4 months. And a door I chose from a salvage yard because it was solid enough to matter when someone tried to take it. Share this with every homeowner you know. Drop a comment and tell me what you built that someone else tried to claim. Hit subscribe. And I will see you in the next one.